Here we go. Now we're okay. Good morning. And today we are going to the last two of the 10 modalities of prayer, Saraya of Tzfat. So it's perfect timing because today is our last class before the Pesach break. I mean, saying Pesach break is kind of fun, like breaking. Who's going on break, right? Until we get to Pesach work. So it fits Baruch Hashem mamish perfectly. Okay, so up until now we've been going through the ladder of prayer, right? So we can use it a muscle as a ladder. We can use the muscle a lot. I prefer to use it as painting. Okay, that we're all given the same words, right? Which is colors. We're all given the same brushes, right? The structure of the tefillah, but every single person is going to paint a completely different picture, right, of tefillah. And like Chazal say in Pirkei Avos, which soon we're going to be reading, right, every Shabbos, Al ta'as tefillah skakfa. Don't make your tefillah established. What do you mean don't make my tefillah established? Aren't we supposed to have established tefillah? These are exact words we say. These are the words our parents said, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, going all the way back to the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah. Why shouldn't we have a fixed tefillah? But that's not what Chazal meant. What Chazal meant is the words, right? Those are fixed. But kavana, you, every day you're different. Every day you're feeling something different. Every day you're in a different mood, right? That's the great place where we bring our mood into tefillah, right? We're in a very, very grateful mood. We're in a very spontaneous mood. We use all the different modalities. Think of them each as colors. We mix the colors and we create our own creation, our art of prayer. So the last two modalities are shava, shin, vav, ayin, and nifilah. Okay, nifilah is a more common word that we know, right? Nafalti, I fell. What does that have to do with prayer, right? So these are going to be two very interesting modalities. So shava is the desperate cry. It's a demand for an urgent salvation. There's a tremendous, it's emergency. It's the siren of prayer, right? We've had a lot of spontaneous prayer. We've spoken about a lot of individual prayer. Shava, that is the Magen David Adom, right? It's the emergency ambulance, fire truck, 101, 102, not 103, that's the Chavat Chashmal, right? I don't know why they got such a number, right? 100, 101, 102 of prayer, okay? And Nefila is a physical and spiritual act of surrender, okay? Often accompanied by falling on one's face, right? Think of like, oh my gosh, right? So when a person puts their hands and covers their face, right, it could be for a lot of different reasons. It could be for shame, right? That they're in a very, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Or it could be from a place of complete surrender, as if like, I don't even know what I am, who I am, where I am, I have no control, zero control over the whatever's happening around. There's a prayer after the Shmona Esrei, which Hasidim almost never say. They always find their way around it. But Litvisha people, somehow they say it, right? And that's Tachanun, which is called Nifilat HaPayim, right? Where when there's a room with an Aron Kodesh and you say this prayer, you go like this, okay? And you say the prayer. Like I said, Hasidim have an Indian almost never to say it. Today's the Yortzeit, today's there's the Chassan, there's the Bris. I heard from the Vishnitzer Rebbe's, he should have Refuah Shlema, Yisrael ben Estelea. His daughter told me that it was 2 years ago when he was in Switzerland on a vacation. So he actually said Tachanun for the first time in his life. Because he had never been in a minyan where there was never a yortzeit, a father who was making a bris, a bar mitzvah boy, or a chassan. So during the 9 days, while he was on vacation and there was only a very small minyan there with him, he ended up saying Tachanun for the first time. Okay, but it is a tefillah where we literally go like this when we say the tefillah, the beginning of the tefillah. Okay, so both modalities reflect the highest and most intimate, and at the same time the lowest, I'll explain in a minute, the spiritual intimacy. These two tefillos, sha'ava and nefilah, are tefillos where the entire ego has been completely stripped away, and only the soul, the pure, most basic, simplest part of man, and greatest part of man at the same time, stands before its creator. Okay?
Explain what the is. Shin
Vav Ayin. Vav Ayin.
What does that mean?
It means to cry out. We'll go through here. We're going to go through 5 sources in the Torah which use this. Okay, there are many more, and Tehillim is full of it. Shavati Eilecha Vatirapeni, right, from Perek Lamed. Okay, we'll get to it in 1 minute. Okay, so Shavat comes from the root Shin Vav Ayin, which is denoting a loud, clear, and urgent cry for help. Right, the ambulance. It's a siren. It is not those sirens, right? Not those sirens. It is not a subtle or poetic expression of need. Okay, and it's also not the animal cry of like it's urgent, it's an emergency. It's the heart scream. It's the plea that erupts when there is no alternative left, being put in the corner, right, between a rock and a hard place. This is the cry that comes out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The pasuk in Shir Hashirim, which we're going to read very shortly. So the pasuk describes that Klal Yisrael Yonasi b'chagvei hasela b'seisar hamadrega. Yonasi, my dove, is caught between a rock and a hard place, right? That's not a loose translation, okay? But that's what it means. And this dove has a problem, right? It wants to go deeper into the rocks and hide amongst the rocks, but there's snakes there. And if it comes out towards the opening of the rocks, then a nesher, an eagle, is going to swoop down and eat it. So it has no place to go. Yonasi b'chag v'hasela b'seisar hamadrega. And Hashem says, what should we do? Hashem tells us, Hashmi'ini es koilech. Let me hear your voice, right? I want to hear you. Call out to me. What kind of call is that? That's shava, right? That's calling out. We have no place to go. What are we going to do? We have no options here. There is no human solution, right? There is no physical, tangible, realistic solution. There is only HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? That's kind of where we are now. The problem is that we don't recognize it, right? We have all these great ideas. Oh, we're going to solve the problem of the Palestinians like this, and we're going to do this, and the bottom line is, if we would all realize that none of these ideas, there is no human, practical, sustainable solution for these problems, right? They might be a great idea, but it's not going to work. None of these issues are going to work. That we have to turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. We are that Yonah. We have no. If we, I love all these people who have these like very simple solutions. Just bomb out all of Gaza, right? Drop an atomic bomb in Gaza. That's a great solution, right? It doesn't work because we have hostages. That means you're killing your own people, right? And you're isolating yourself from the international community. And the list goes on and on and on. On the other hand, right? So send in the soldiers, right? I hear that as a mother of soldiers. Like, no way. Why should my son have to go in? Why should and this is what's happened. Hundreds of boys have died to save a few, since who's making these shikulim? Then the bottom line is there is no answer, right? There's no answer, and we should just say thank you, Hashem, that I'm not in politics. Thank you, thank you that I don't write an opinion column for the Times of Israel or the Jerusalem Post or anything else. Thank you that I'm not, they have all the parliaments that sit and read the newspaper. The men that they get the free newspaper every morning, and they sit on Rechov Yerushalayim, order 1 cup of coffee, and stay there for like 5 hours debating all the important things. Thank God I'm not in the parliament either, not that one. And I don't have to, because where are we? Hashmi'ini es kolech. Hashem just wants to hear us say, we have no solution. There is nothing we can do. Whatever we do is going to be the wrong thing. Whatever we do is not going to be good. So save us, right? Hashem, because we have nothing. Yeah, literally, right.
Of course, it's through God, but God might send some messages into us that we need to follow through on.
The minute that we turn to God and we say, we don't know, we can't do this, we have no solution, we don't know what to do, that's when we get that blitz, that lightning, that, oh, this is what we need to do. right? And then but we have to first take the steps of saying, I don't know, right? I have no idea. And nobody has any idea. We don't know what to do. We have no clue how to solve this problem. So Hashmin has kolech orev umarech naveh, because your voice is beautiful, Hashem says. Now that pasuk is very interesting pasuk because it says your voice is sweet. Okay, the word for sweet in Hebrew, we say it every morning in Birkas HaTorah. V'harev na, ayin reish vav, right? It should make sweet. The Torah should be sweet. That same shoresh also means an orev, a raven, or a crow, right? Who doesn't have such a sweet voice, right? Right? Not pleasant, not sweet. Hashem says, I want to hear your voice, even if you sing like a raven, like a crow, right? Just like a mother always wants to hear from her children, right? Even if they just call me, just let me hear your voice. Just tell me you're okay. Just tell me, things. I just want to hear your voice. Even if you don't want to tell me you're okay, I want to hear from you. All right, I want to be Bekesher. Hashem says, don't worry, just sing the way you sing. Talk to me from your own words. Call out to me. Don't be afraid that your voice is going to sound like a siren. Call out to me. So Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch explains on Tehillim that this particular shoresh shin vav ayin sha'ava implies a cry that arises specifically from the sense of absolute helplessness and dependency on divine intervention. That's it, right? It's not giving up, right? It's giving in, right? Giving into saying, Hashem, I'm giving this completely over to you. I am stuck, right? I don't know what to do. There is no, I don't see any way out of this. And that's when we realize that everything is divine intervention, and we never actually have a way out of anything unless Hashem sends this stuff. So let's look at a few places in the Torah. So we first meet Sha'ava in Shmos, right? It says, and they called out from their slavery, and Vayishma es Sha'avasam, and Hashem heard their Sha'ava. Hashem heard their complete, desperate cry. Okay, so they use two modalities of prayer, because we quoted this pasuk already when we did Tza'aka, right? They screamed out to Hashem, but where did they? And they came to this place of, we're just stuck, right? We tried, we don't know, we have no solution, we're in big trouble. Okay. Rashi points out that Sha'avatam was a cry not articulated in speech, but a groan from deep suffering, which is similar to Tza'aka, but here in Sha'ava, it's even in a deeper place. It's in a place of complete, again, not despair, right? It's not I give up, right? That's not a prayer. I give up is not a prayer, right? I give over to you, Hashem. I give in, I submit. I realize that this is not within me, right? It's not about me. There is nothing here that I can do. I've done whatever I could, and what I could do right now is just give it over to you, Hashem. Completely let go and let God. The Sforno on their pasuk explains that their cry was not even necessarily directed to Hashem consciously, yet Hashem still responded. That's an incredible thing with the Sforno saying. The Sforno saying that sometimes a person doesn't even realize how stuck they are, or they realize how stuck they are, and they're able to erase their ego part, but they're not yet in a place where they could say, oh, I'm giving it all over to you, Hashem. So even from a place of unconsciousness, so to speak, of not realizing that, I realize I can't do it, just by erasing that ego, we've come to a very deep place in prayer where Hashem responds. Because at the moment that we make space for Hashem, right? And this is Sha'ava, is this prayer that makes a tremendous amount of space to Hashem. Because I'm completely minimizing myself and saying, it's nothing, there's nothing here for me to do. Nothing. I am completely making space for Hashem. Let go and let God in the extreme, radical, most way possible. So the Sforno highlights that Sha'ava is the kind of prayer that doesn't even require awareness, because it's so authentic, that recognition of it's not me. And so when I make space for God, God fills that space. Right? One of the highlights of the tefillah that we say in the Kedusha is Ayeh makom kvodo. Where is Hashem's space? What's the answer? Kvodo malei olam. It's wherever we make space for it. We're reading these beautiful parshios right now. We had 2 parshios about the Mishkan. We took a break to discuss the Chet HaEgel, and then we went back to the Mishkan, right? So Rabbi David Foreman, he has this great, brilliant ideas. He says, you could fold the last 5 parshios of Sefer Shmos in half, and they almost all the main topics exactly overlap each other. It's called Atbash, right? It starts with Anan, there's cloud. Hashem is going to come down in cloud. The building of the Mishkan, the Chet HaEgel, the commandment about Shabbos, Mishkan, Anan. Fold that in half. You have Atbash. It all matches up. Now, what's the connection between Shabbos and Egel? And what's the connection, he asks, between Mishkan, Shabbos, and Egel and Anan? What's happening here? Anan, the cloud of glory, is Hashem Kiviyachol coming into our space, right? Mishkan is us making a space for Hashem. Egel HaZahav was a really bad decision to try to make a failed attempt to make space for Hashem, right? You made space for the wrong thing. Shabbos is the time that holds the space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does that mean? Shabbos is the time that holds the space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You could have a beautiful painting on your wall, right? You could have a gorgeous view from your mirpeset. But unless you make time to sit and look at these things, you forget, right? Does anyone ever come into your house and say, wow, that's beautiful, right? That's a beautiful painting. Or do you have a great view or something? And you're like, oh yeah, nachon, right? Right? Because we tend to get used to things. So they're in our house, right? Or we have access to them, right? We spoke about this once, that, we live amongst these amazing kivrei tzaddikim, right? I pass by Shem Ve'ever almost every day. Nachum Ish Gamzu is my neighbor, right? So we don't realize, oh my gosh, when do we realize yes? So I had 7 girls for Shabbos, and I said, oh, do you want to have a mincha by Nachum Ish Gamzu? What? Wow. And right, I forgot that I have this amazing thing. So you could have a space for something. You could have a mishkan. You could have a gorgeous painting. You could have these kivrei tzaddikim. But if you don't make time to hold the space, to recognize the space, then you have nothing, right? So you need time and you need space. That's the relationship between mishkan and Shabbos. Now, how is the Mishkan built? By doing 39 different types of labor, melacha. How is Shabbos built? By not doing it, right? Because space and time have an invert relationship, right? When things are constantly moving, when there's no permanent space for something, it's very hard to catch it and have time with it, right? You can't have time with something that's always on the go, right? You need space to have time. Now, without getting into Albert Einstein's relative theory, which, believe me, I don't understand anyways, I have to take this course right now in math for my degree, and wow, I got to get an 80. I can't even get pass, because it's a law. You have to get an 80 in every subject. And I'm like, wow. I posted it in my group with my children. I said, it's your turn, do my homework. Oh yeah, definitely they did it. Not. I did your English homework for you for years. It's your turn now. Okay, there's other modalities to take care of it. The teacher, she said, and you can use ChatGPT. And I'm thinking to myself, what's the point? What, artificial intelligence. What's the point? AI. All I have to do is type it into AI and hand it into you. Sounds good. I can do a class like this. I can get an 80. That's today's
Yes, you've heard it.
Today's teaching. The teacher said it.
No, it's not.
If the teacher said it,
It's not in your head. If it's just from a.
I gotta listen to the teacher. She's the boss.
Yeah.
She said go on ChatGPT.
Spell check first came out, people thought that was the spell checks and the grammar checks. People thought like that was cheating, and nobody will don't learn how to spell anymore, whatever.
which they don't.
We just keep getting used
Yeah,
to
that's
these.
Yeah.
We just keep getting used to these things.
But we do give them over.
And we get dumber and dumber from it, of course.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I am.
Yep. Okay, but we get an 80. So that's what matters, right? Okay, another place where the word sha'ava is used. Yatzil evion misha'ava va'ani ve'en ozer lo, from Tehillim 72. For he will save the needy when he cries, the poor also, and him that has no helper. So again, this is the recognition that I am alone, right? Not only am I alone, but I don't even have myself to depend on, right? There's one thing to say I'm alone. That's one level. I have no person that I'm depending on. But to say I can't depend on myself, right? That's a very, very deep recognition of how dependent and how vulnerable I am. Something which we try to avoid at all costs, right? Western society, Eastern society is different. But Western society has wired us to depend on ourselves, right? To be independent, right? Self-actualization, right? It's you, right? You can do everything. I can do everything, right? Be all you can be, right? You can do everything. The obsession in Western society with superheroes, right? Okay, that wow, you are a superhero, and that's a goal in life to be a superhero, right? Wait a second, I can't even depend on myself. And anyone who's been there knows that that is one of the most frightening and scary things when a person can say, I cannot depend on my own conclusions. I cannot depend on my own advice to advise myself. I am completely dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he sent me good shlichim to guide me and to help me, because I made such horrible decisions, right? It's a very scary place to be. It's an extremely vulnerable place to be. So either a person at that point, it's going to be extreme. Either they're going to use a lot of cognitive dissonance to cover up their ego, or they are going to come to this great, extremely sweet spot of connecting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Part of the success of the 12 steps is that a person, in order to go up, right, you got to hit rock bottom. Okay, you got to get to this place, and this is what rock bottom is. Rock bottom is I can't even really depend on myself. So in the 12 steps, it's because I make bad decisions. I confuse the solution with the problem, which is the definition of an addiction, right? I think alcohol is going to solve my problems. I think gambling is going to solve my problems. I think food is going to solve my problems, even though I have to say chocolate and Ben & Jerry's does solve a lot of problems. But okay, that's why I went to OA for years and still can say that it's a problem. But and here I'm mixing up the solution with the problem. So I think the problem is the solution, and I can't even make a clear decision for myself, right? That is such humility. That opens up the opportunity that is the basis of the opportunity for all healing, is to be able to say that. That is, by the way, very counter to what modern psychology will tell you, right? Modern psychology, which doesn't exactly align with the 12 steps, which historically has been the only program or treatment, however you want to call it, which has helped addicts in the long term, right? There is no other treatment that has been close success to what the 12 steps has done. But nevertheless, modern psychology will tell you, no, that you have to depend on yourself. You have to, right? Only you. I guess we could look at that from a Freudian perspective also. What does that say about the psychologists? Okay. So Rashi, when he's commenting on this pasuk, he emphasized that Hashem responds not because of the person's merit, but because of his need, powerlessness, and vulnerability. So the more vulnerable we can get in this tefillah, the more salvation we can expect to see. Authentic vulnerability, right? Because people like this, there's a very inauthentic vulnerability that's very popular now, where there's people who post things on social media showing how perfect they are, and there are people who post on social media showing, oh my God, my life is a mess, right? Is that really vulnerability? I'm not sure. I think it's some kind of manipulation, right? Somebody who's truly vulnerable is vulnerable only with God or with people who deserve to hear their vulnerability, right? You don't walk around and say, oh my goodness, I'm just like such a mess, right? Like I need so much help and I don't know what to do. That's usually a sign of unhealthiness. Okay, we share those things with God or with people who deserve to hear our story. Malbim explained that there are three stages here: the needy, the poor, and the helplessness. Sha'ava is the spiritual state of one who no longer seeks aid from intermediaries, but only from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning, again, this is not I give up. Do not confuse Sha'ava with I give up. It means that I realize that it's only Hashem. Only Hashem. There's a pasuk in Eov, from out of the city men groan, and the soul of the wounded cries out. And that cries out is Tisha'ava. Eov is something that we don't study so much because it's very depressing. It's very depressing. The Malbim points out that even when society ignores the groaning of the oppressed, Hashem listens to their sha'ava. The soul itself cries when the body cannot. Which the Malbim is saying that sometimes our physical body cannot cry out, right? Our soul cries out. Now, I want to take this a little bit out of context, and this is not exactly what the Malbim is saying, but it's a thought that I had when I heard this Malbim. Perhaps the Malbim is saying that a person cannot verbalize their prayer. They can't verbalize their dependence on Hashem. They can't verbalize their vulnerability. But what I think perhaps the Malbim is saying is that the physical body will verbalize that through disease, through not feeling well, chronic fatigue, right? What is the message of the body when it's telling us that? And this is the logo rave. This is not like 100%, right? There are people who have diseases which have nothing to do with their emotional state. Okay, that happens also. A person could catch a cold, right? Could get COVID or whatever it is, not due to their emotional state, but just because that's what Hashem wanted them to happen. It's not that every person who's not well, if they would fix their emotions, that's not true, okay? But there are...
They see that
our energy healer, yes.
That any type of what sickness is actually bringing you to another level that you get to. So it's not necessarily like
spiritually or physically.
Both.
Yeah, fair. So when a person, very often though, and there are many, many people, and I see this in my line of work as well, that you have people who they've suffered for years and years and years, and they don't ask for help, not because they don't want to, because they don't even know how. And sometimes they don't even realize that they need help or that something is wrong. They get used to it, right? Just like they say, I don't know this is true, because I, Baruch Hashem, have never had this and never seen this and don't want to be a part of this, but people who eat, societies that eat frogs, right? So they
what?
Eat frogs, right? How do they cook the frogs?
No, they eat
Frogs.
the leg. It's the leg.
Well, apparently, they cook them alive, right? So the question is, why doesn't the frog jump out of the?
Because it's in pain.
So the studies say because it gets used to it, right? They don't drop it into boiling water.
Fat.
They drop what?
Fat. They use boiling fat, like chip.
Let's go on.
Okay.
We get the analogy.
Okay. It's kind of getting gross. Okay. And anyways, they get used to it, right? People get used to what they know they're used to, just like the Yidden got used to living in Mitzrayim, right? It was okay. They accepted it. We accepted it. This has happened all the time. It's always like, I want to go crazy when I stand before a judge and I just start describing the abuse that my client has gone through over the years. And so they say, well, why didn't she come 10 years ago? And I'm like, do you know anything about what's like? You get used to it. You think this is normal.
They abuse you slowly.
And it's not right away. First, it's a love bomb. Then it turns and it's methodical and it's textbook. It's almost in every case is the same thing. And usually somebody who has been through so much abuse, they don't come and say, I'm being abused. They don't even understand they're being abused. They think this is normal, right? Just like, by the way, are we any different? How many years did we live with our good neighbors, right? Sending over, just today was a quiet day. We only had 1 or 2 bombs, only 1 or 2 sirens, right? Oh, thank God in this pigua, only one person was. Do you even we're like? What are we saying? What a pigua? A ban? Right? That's not normal, right? Oh, but it's it became part for people who lived in. They wrote for people who lived in Metula. It became a normal Ashkelon, Ashdod, right?
Well, that's the mechanism of how to deal with it.
Oh, the mechanism of how to deal with it is very difficult because you're used to it. So you get used to it, and then you don't even realize it's abuse. You don't realize this is crazy. This is insanity. This is war. When did this war start? When did the war of Chorvat Barzel start? 1948, right? Because we have been living like this since even before then. Go back to the 1920s, to the 18th century. Korban Bais, Lo Meshane. It didn't start today. It didn't start a year ago. It didn't start 500 and whatever days ago. This has been going on since the beginning of the state. But we get used to it. So we don't think.
Well, the whole gullus, and we had if people didn't think they needed to leave Europe, there was pogroms, there was all kinds of. Well, it'll blow over. It's not so bad.
They were used to it.
Used to it.
Nachon. This was life. This is our grandparents survived it. Our great grandparents survived it. A great grandparent all the way back. This is part of being a Jew. And by the way, the same thing. This is what it means to be a Jew. It means to live with anti-Semitism and violence erupting every once in a while. And there are many women, unfortunately, who think the same thing. This is what it means to be a woman, right? This is what it means to be a wife. So every once in a while, he has a little temper tantrum. He said, okay, throws a few things, breaks a few things, hits a few people. But there's people who have cancer that's much worse, right? That's what they say to themselves. So you get used to it, and therefore the body, therefore the soul doesn't call out to Hashem, right? We've gotten used to the situation the way it is, and therefore, okay, we're used to it, so we don't call out to Hashem. But what I want to say is that maybe the Malvim is saying, but the body does call out to Hashem.
Wow.
The body does call out to Hashem because the body is going to say, I can't do this anymore, right? I can't handle digestion anymore. I can't fight off cold anymore. Chronic fatigue, right? All the autoimmune diseases, headaches, migraines, right? The body is calling out and saying, you cannot depend on me. And I've heard people say this, I can't depend on my own body. What is that telling us? Yes, we can't depend on our own. That's bringing us to a place of sha'ava. I depend only on a kadosh baruch Hu. Only on a kadosh baruch Hu. And even though it's bringing us to an extremely scary and super vulnerable place, it also is bringing us to a very, very sweet place. Because when a person is conscious and really feels, right, that every breath they're taking, every heart that beats within them, every time their heart beats, that this is all HaKadosh Baruch Hu, filling them with air, beating their heart, making their digestive tract work. This is all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're bringing Olam Haba and making Olam Haza Olam Haba. They're bringing the Anan into the world. They're making a Mishkan, a place, a space for Hashem, and they're giving him time. The tefillah we have is in place of the avodah of the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash. U'neshalma parim sifasenu. We have all these sacrifices and lighting the menorah and the ketores. This is all we daven now. We don't have these things. So the Mishkan is space. Tefillah is time. Shabbos is where those two things come together. Okay. So it further says in Tehillim, I rose before dawn and I cried out, Visha'avasi, I hoped in your word. Rashi says that David HaMelech here expresses that even before the day begins, his longing and sha'ava ascends. Now that's David HaMelech, right? Before things get bad, he's in this completely conscious place of not me, but you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Everything is you. Imagine if we started our day on such a, not just Moida'ani, right? But in a deep contemplation, a deep meditation of everything is you, Hashem, right? I don't know what to do today. I don't know how to plan my day. I don't know how to get out of bed. I don't want to get out of bed, right? I don't know how to get out of bed. I don't know how to fight off the Yetzer Hara, which is telling me to stay in bed. I don't know what the right thing is to do, right? One of the hardest choices that we make sometimes is between good and good, right? Do I daven more? Do I say Tehillim? Or do I cook a meal for somebody? Do I visit somebody? Or do I go to visit Rabbi Shimon, right? That's good and that's good, right? How do I know what to do? I don't know what to do. Hashem, please help me, tell me, guide me, right? Make it obvious to me. Give me chokhmah. Give me wisdom, because I don't know how to make these decisions, from the smallest decision to a big decision, right? I have no idea how I am going to clean for Pesach. Ein li musag, right? Ein li musag. I'm not a very good organized person. Every time I clean something for Pesach, I turn around and somebody messes it up, right? Okay, I have all this junk. I don't know. I don't know how to part with things. I don't know. Even the smallest things, when we completely can put ourselves aside and bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu into it and say, Hashem, I'm completely dependent. I had a neighbor many years ago who, believe it or not, she had a lot, and I mean a lot of kids, like twins and here and there, and like, I don't even know, there was, literally a baby every year. And she made a bris on Rosh Chodesh Nisan for her baby, and this was like number 13, 14, and they're living in this tiny apartment, right? 2 bedrooms, really small, which Erev Pesach, it's kind of nice to have 2 bedrooms, right? And a tiny kitchen where you don't have to, go through all this stuff. Anyways, and everybody at the bris was like, how on earth is she going to make Pesach, right? Her mother doesn't want her, right? You're not coming with your 13 kids, right? To me, and I think her mother had even a smaller apartment, and her in-laws, how are they going to make Pesach? And everyone's thinking it and kind of whispering, like, how could we help her? How could we this? And we're all planning on her. And then, so someone says to her, how do you want us to help you? Like, how could we help you? Could we, you want to farm out your kids? Not that anyone really wanted them. You want us to make food for you? Like, what, how can we help? And she's like, I have absolutely no idea. But I know that every single year, somehow, I get to Pesach and the house is clean. And I know that Hashem is going to do for me another miracle this year, like he did last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. So anyways, it's not me who's cleaning. And anyways, it's not me who's shopping and planning. It's my husband. No, it's her husband's one of these like Luftmenschen, like you don't even want him cleaning, right? He'll get so distracted, he'll end up, God only knows what, right? But and that was her attitude. And I thought that was so beautiful. Like, yeah, it's going to be HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Hashem every year. It's miracle every year is a miracle. Okay, so the Radak says that this is the tefillah of early rising, a spiritual discipline where desire and desperation meet. And that's like go take on the day afterwards, right? When we say everything is in control, but not my control, Hashem's control. And taking those few minutes to have this meditation or contemplation of giving over everything to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the way David HaMelech began his day. Okay, so moving on. The Baal Shem Tov says that Sha'ava doesn't require words. The soul, like the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, expresses truth through its rawest sound. The Sfas Emes adds, when you cry with Sha'ava, you recognize that even davening is not about worthlessness, but about truth. Sha'ava is when the ego is no longer a barrier. So the ego is a very interesting thing. Whereas on one hand, right, we need some kind of ego, right? Otherwise, we'll just disintegrate into nothing, right? Not literally, but in an emotional place. On the other hand, ego is a lie, right? Ego is a lie. So where do I find this balance? And so the Kotzker Rebbe used to say that he carries in one pocket a piece of paper, a little zettel, that says, Bishvili nivra ha'olam, right? The world was created for me. And in the other pocket, he carries a piece of paper that says, Va'anochi ofar ve'efar. I'm dust, right? Who am I? I'm nothing. To create balance. What does that balance look like? So that balance looks like what we say in the Nishmas Tefillah. Eivarim shepilakta ban. V'ruach v'neshama shenafachta ba'apein. I have all these gifts. Hashem gave me gifts. Hashem gave me the ability to speak. I breathe. I could think. I could create. I have all these gifts. But where do they come from? Shepilakta banu, that you invested within us. I am a kli, right? I am a kli that Hashem has invested in me. Okay? HaKadosh Baruch Hu has invested tremendous in me. Bishvili nivra ha'olam, right? But what, I'm a kli. It's not me, right? It's not me. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving me this surge of power, this surge of energy, this surge of ability And so now I hold that. And I have to be a ne'eman, I have to be a shomer, I have to watch over it. Right? We say, Neshama, Elokai shenasata bi tohorahi, it's pure. Right? Ato virasa, you made it, right? You made it, you renew it every day, and you gave it to me. Shamra bikirbi, and I gotta watch over it. That's my job here. Adam was put in Gan Eden for what purpose? La'avda u'lishamra. Did he own it? Did he make the garden? Did he plant anything there? No. What did he have to do? La'avda u'lishamra. What does it mean, la'avda u'lishamra? What work was done in Gan Eden? Right? There wasn't even laundry in Gan Eden. That's Gan Eden, right? That's work. That's work. You know, you're Seuss, you're that. What did he do? What's la'avda u'lishamra? To recognize that it all comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's hard work.
Wow.
That's hard work. Recognizing and being conscious of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not confusing me and him is hard work. It requires discipline, the constant discipline of saying, oh, wait a second, no, I didn't do that. Of making sure we don't go into pride, right? And say, wait, look at what I did. Part of the problem, one of the roots of Cain's unfortunate, I don't know how you say this, is unfortunate development as a human being, right? Where he was the first murderer. What does the word Cain mean? It's from Lashon Kinyan. I acquired. When Chava named him, Cain, acquired. Cain and Abel from the beginning, going all the way back in the beginning. Okay.
I didn't think it was kind.
No.
It's my accent again.
Oh, right.
Okay.
No.
So Cain, Kain or Cain doesn't make a difference. Okay. So so he, let's go.
It's a pronunciation of the Hebrew.
It means acquired. Okay. Kinesi ish. Chava says, I have acquired a man. That slight deviance, slight as it might have been, deviance into pride, created a murderer, right? It's unbelievable, right? Slight deviance into me, I did this. Look what came out of me, a human being. I'm a creator. What? The I did it, right? My accomplishment. That tiny deviation, right? It's unbelievable. But that's what happens when we slightly deviate off balance. We could get
everybody's proud when they have a baby.
We're not saying you shouldn't be happy and you shouldn't be proud.
I didn't.
It's submitting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yalla, we don't have a lot of time left, and we didn't even start Nefila. Okay, the Tzemach Tzedek says that this is the modality of prayer that breaks through the heavens because it emanates from the soul's connection to Ein Sof. Okay, which makes perfect sense because we're saying it's an erasing of the ego. When the ego is erased, that is the connection to the Ein Sof, the endless. Rav Tzadok HaKohen tells us the power of Sha'ava is its immediacy, right? Its emergency. It moves beyond structure and awakens divine response from beyond the spheros. Okay, and now we'll talk about Nefila for a few minutes. Okay, so Nefila, which literally means falling, right? Both we have it all the time, right? Nefila Sapayim. It is in prayer. It's expressed through Nefila Sapayim of going like this. When one prostrates or falls upon their face, it represents complete self-nullification, where the supplicant no longer pleads from a position of strength or merit, but falls into the hands of divine mercy. Rav Hirsch explains that this modality arises when one comes face to face with divine reality and surrenders entirely. The Baal HaTanya sees Nefila as a state of bittul, where ego disappears and only Hashem remains. So it's extremely similar to Sha'ava, but it's one step even further. It's literally, physically, complete physical, spiritual surrender. We're going to skip the the psukim from the Torah to get to the Hasidic insights. The Baal HaTanya teaches in Nefilas Apayim, the soul surrenders completely, which is similar to Malchus, which is why Nefila is the last of all of the modalities of prayer. Just like we have in the Spheros, the 7 Spheros, and Malchus is the lowest. What does it mean it's the lowest? It's the lowest rung on the ladder, but it contains and gives a ability for the rest of the Spheros, for the rest of the rungs on the ladder. So too Nefila. Nefila gives that holding space for all of the other modalities of tefillah. So it's the lowest and it's the highest at the same time. It's the lowest and it's the most intense. So the Baal HaTanya teaches that Nefilas Apayim, the soul surrenders completely, similar to Malchus, which receives but owns nothing, right? Malchus is nothing of itself, just like we said, the person is the container and the vessel for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's endless energy. So too, Nefilas Apayim is similar to Malchus, and therefore it has a great space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light to enter. The Sfas Emes tells us that Nefila is the prelude to elevation. Only when man falls can he truly rise. The breaking of the vessel makes way for the new light. And that's a concept that I know that you all know probably better than I do, right? The concept of the broken vessels and the ability through the broken vessels to hold light. It sounds counterintuitive. If I'm broken, well, what can I hold? But we know that David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Leiv nishbar v'nitke Elokim lo sivzeh. The broken-hearted soul, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will never abandon him. Because the person who is broken, similar to the idea we spoke about hitting rock bottom, it's all the same concept. That when a person realizes, it's not me, it's only God. It's only God. That is when they are at their purest form. That is when they are at their best place. That is when they are actually shining more than they could have shined. And they are a true vessel for bringing the light of God, because they just think about, like we talk about the prophecy, is an asplakaria me'ira. It's pure a vision, right? It's a clean mirror where a person clearly sees, not a mirror, a glass, right? So you could have a window, right, which is full of dust and grime, and you could see through it, but you can't really appreciate the pictures. And you can have a window which is sparkling clean, which once upon a time, when I lived next to that lady who needed to make Pesach, right? I had this amazing cleaning lady who, when she would clean the glass doors, you had to put like a sticker on them, because it happened once that somebody walked right through the door because they didn't realize that it was glass, okay? So when a person does nefila, they have cleaned it so well that you can't even tell that there's glass there. So the light of Hashem shines through and illuminates the entire world through them in the highest and most deepest way. Rabbi Nachman tells us when one falls spiritually, if he uses that moment to surrender to Hashem rather than despair, the fall itself becomes a form of elevation. It becomes a springboard. The pasuk in Micha says, "Ki nafalti kamti ki eshev b'choshech Hashem orli." Because I fell, I got up. Because I sat in darkness, Hashem was light to me. If we think about how a roller coaster works through kinetic and potential energy, right? The fall, first it drops, right? You have to climb up, or it takes you up with some kind of train, right? It takes you up, and then you fall, and then it has the enough motion to keep going through the 7 loops and turns and all that kind of great stuff. Okay, so it works on potential and kinetic energy. So the fall is building up the potential energy. The fall creates the ability for it to go further. When we fall, that's when we have a choice. If we can admit our mistake, right? And say, wow, I fell. And be honest and make space for Hashem in that fall, we've now, wow, right? And that's why when someone does tshuva from ahava, there's donot, their intentional sins turn to zchuyot, turn to merit. From this same ideas, potential and kinetic energy. They use the fall to literally build themselves up. Okay?
That's why it says that a tzaddik falls 7 times.
Yafeh meod. Sheva yipol tzaddik become. And the Nesiv Shalom says that it doesn't mean that he fell 7 times and then got up. It means he's in a constant cycle of falling. 7 represents a constant cycle, the week. He's constantly falling. He's constantly getting up. It's not okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, I fell 7 times, and now it's and what makes him a tzaddik if he keeps making these mistakes? That he gets up, right? That he utilizes his falling to propel himself forward. Okay, Rav Levi Yitzchak Miberdishev tells us that in the dust, man remembers his origin. The fallen position becomes holy ground, for it is there that divine mercy is most accessible. When we remember that Anochi Afar Ve'efer, where do we come from, right? We start Leil HaSeder, right? Talking about Terach. Why are we talking about Terach? Let's just skip to the main part. We were slaves. We were there. At least start with Avram. Why are we starting with Terach? No, it's important to remember. It's important to remember where you came from, right? It humbles us. It realizes, wait a second, like, wow, okay, so we all everybody falls, everybody stumbles, everybody has all these secrets in their family history, right? The uncle who went to jail or something like that. Okay, so Sha'ava and Nefila are not composed prayers. They're not written anywhere. We don't have a script for them. They are desperate cries, they're kavanas, they're intentions, and collapses of those who have nothing left but Hashem. And yet, paradoxically, it is in this space of desperation that the most intimate connection with the divine is formed. As David HaMelech says, Karov Hashem l'nishbrei lev, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is close to the brokenhearted. That's from Tehillim 34. So in our Sha'ava, in our Nefilah, in these cries and these falls, we fall back into Hashem's arms. The pasuk in Shir Hashirim tells us, "Smolo tachas l'roshi v'yimino techapkeni." But HaKadosh Baruch Hu's smolo, his left hand supports my head, and his right arm is around me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds us like you hold a baby. V'yimino techapkeni. When is this pasuk said? If you look at Shir Hashirim, it's this whole conversation between Klal Yisrael and Hashem, where Hashem says, "I love you," and we say, "Oh, you can't love me. I'm so ugly. I'm so stupid. I am so bad. I always screw up." Right? We say, "Dodi nasan nerdi nasan recho." Right? You gave me the Torah, and what did I do? The chet ha'egel. Right? You can't love somebody like that. You can't possibly love us. And what does Hashem say? Yonosi b'chag v'hasela, right? At yafa, mar'ayich hashmi'in yaskolech. You're beautiful. You're Yonosi, Tamasi, Achisi. You're my dove. You're my wife. You're my sister. You're my love. I love you even if you had only one eye. Ari in divshi. It's talking about in Perek Dalet. It starts off with Hashem mixes all of these unmixable things, right? Yari in divshi. I forgot what Yari is right now with my honey. I can't remember what the word Yari means, but it's something which is the opposite of honey, something which a good chef doesn't mix. For you, anything, right? I love you. And we keep saying, no, it can't be. You can't love me. Hashem says, yes. Yes. I love you. Yes, you. Me? Are you sure? Right? It's almost like you're, a little what's it called? Borderline, right? Personality disorder, right? I love you. No, you don't. Prove it, right? I love you. You can't love me, right? You can't possibly love me. Who could possibly love me, right?
Why? Why on earth did you think like
Who?
you?
No, this is what Kleinstrom says.
Personality disorder.
Okay,
Things.
so
No.
maybe. Okay, so in any event, moving on, right? This conversation. How could you love me after I did the Chet Egel? How could you love me after I did Chet Meraglim? How could you love me after I complained in the midbar when you gave me everything? How could you love me after we brought Avodah Zarah into the Beis Hamikdash? Right? You can't really, you love me that much, and Hashem keeps saying, yes, I do, right? I do. Well, yes, I love you. I do. I love you more than anything. I love you even if you had one eye, right? I love you no matter what. That's what Shir Hashirim is saying. And this is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I hold you. Smalo tachas l'roshi, v'yimino techapkeni. I'm always there, always holding you. All you have to do is realize that, right? You don't have to be that colicky baby that doesn't feel right, right? I'm always here. I'm always holding you. And we realize that when we're able to be open and be able to be that vulnerable, to let Hashem, so to speak, hold us with sha'ava and nefilah. And this goes through all of the tefillot, all the modalities of prayer that we learned. That the bottom line is not giving up, but giving in. Giving over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The more we give over, whether it's in a structured way, whether it's in a spontaneous way, whether it's in a hodaya through praise, whether it's in desperation, whether it's with words, whether it's without words, the kavanah of Hashem, I am yours, right? It's all you. That is the epitome of tefillah. And so Hashem should bench us, that we should be able to make the most beautiful tefillot, the most individual tefillot, because that's, in the end of the day, that is what we're here for, right? We are here to raise consciousness of Hashem. And the deepest way that we can raise consciousness of Hashem is through the prayers, is through expressing everything Hashem gave us, our mood, our talents, our thoughts, our desires, both evil and good, and sending it all up in prayer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So have a Chag Sameach. Everyone was saying Chag Sameach. I'm like, which Chag are they talking about? Forgot that it's Pesach. Chodesh Tov.